Welcome back to Man Across New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling. I show you what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today, where, as per usual, we'll just be vibing, we'll be chilling, we'll be relaxing. I ran out of words, so I guess that's kind of where it stops. You know, only those free, but you know, the rules are free, and important rule in well, many sort of things. So you know, I suppose get out while you can. I don't know. I mean, get out while you can, Sanson, but it's not exactly the turn of phrase I wanted. But hey ho. Yeah, I don't really know what to talk about, to be perfectly honest. I'm just trying to think of is there any conversations on my mind. We had our writing group meeting, I suppose, last night. That would be something to talk about. Hello everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 2:25 PM on Friday, April 8th, 2022. Kicks are here as per usual. I don't know why I said as per usual, because it's not like he's usually here, but no, I think I mentioned this a couple of times before with some of my friends. We have like this creative writing group. Well, it's more like creative creation group, maybe just creative group full stop or whatever, where you can kind of do whatever, I suppose, based on prompts. And I'm just doing them for writing because I mean I really draw my free time anyway, I suppose. And a lot of times I don't follow prompts from that sort of thing, and you know, that's just my choice. And I've always wanted to, you know, sort of give writing a little bit of a go. I don't think not nearly as much as I would like to give music creation and art more of a go, but it's still, I think, nice to give it a bit of a spin. This time you might be like, oh, what do you do this time? I don't even know if I talked about last one. I think I did talk about last one. Then I talked about Beatrix Potter and how that was like the sort of like initial direction I was going for that story. This one, basically what ended up happening was like I kind of like didn't really know what I was going to do. I mean, it ended up being a poem, and I was like, all right, I guess we'll just write a poem then. And it was an alright poem, I think. And I think again it sort of fell into the usual category for me, where I think a lot about thematics and themings and broad level ideas, but then I tend to sort of neglect on the nitty gritty details and the actual. I'm not going to say the actual execution, because that's a bit of a loaded term, but the actual, like, small bits of, like, you know, the smaller details which actually make sense. Wait, hold on. Not which makes sense. I mean, like, it makes sense for me to do that, because that's kind of, like, ends up what I usually do, you know, broad strokes, big picture sort of things. First and then details, but then, you know, I just got lazy and just didn't do the details, I suppose. Didn't do my due diligence, which is, you know, well, I shouldn't say I didn't do my due diligence, and because that makes it sound like, oh, you know, I'm like an expert poet writer, and I just gave up at this one. When it's more like I haven't written poetry for ages, and you know, I don't really remember a lot of the poet things you're meant to do. But that was good fun, and it was basically. Hold on, I need a sip of water. Like my throat, and I'm not sure if you can hear, my throat is dying. It's basically a very sing-songy sort of poem, which was meant to be, because one of the themes was meant to be identical. Oh, okay. I actually thought Harriet was going to start talking about one of the paintings Crazy Red had on display, and I was like, what? But no, she wasn't. It was meant to be a rather sing-songy sort of poem from death, quote quote, like the Grim Reaper, I suppose. About the death of your old self and rebirth into the new, and then the identity crisis being like the sort of evaluations and by meeting people previously from your life who gave you not the inspiration, but who you took after, I suppose, in certain ways to slowly become. And I don't know why in my mind I feel like the Grim Reaper is a very sort of like sing-songy. I was gonna say person. I guess the Grim Reaper is not really meant to be a person entity. Like, I feel like a much more usual portrayal of a Grim Reaper is obviously very dark and sort of foreboding and rather neutral. And certainly, if a Grim Reaper does exist, which, you know, I'm not extremely convinced, but I'm not going to, you know, just like rule it out just like that, because who knows what happens after we die. And as I say, I tend to have a optimistic, nihilistic view on things, where probably nothing, but, you know, everyone's, of course, free to have their own interpretations, etc., etc. But I don't know. I was trying to think about why I had such like a sing-songy, like casual demeanour, I suppose, when it comes to my interpretation of the Grim Reaper and this sort of thing. And it reminded me of this, which I'm not sure if it's the actual source of, not the actual source, or if it's based on something else entirely. I think it's like a College Humor video or something, where it's like the alphabet of things which could kill you, which, you know, is a bit dark, I suppose, but It's basically, I suppose, meant to be a sort of mockery on the viewpoint that everything is bad for you in a certain way, and then you know, it parodies the fact that if you take that sort of route through life, then you should just literally do nothing, because anything has the chance of possibly increasing the likelihood of unfortunate things are happening. Basically being like so risk adverse that you end up not even living in the first place, all in the spirit of trying to avoid death. And I think it's a College Human video, and I thought about it recently because, you know, obviously writing that just like came to mind again. Like, oh yeah, you know, that's a very sort of like sing-songy, nursery rhyme-esque video about death, except for it goes through like the alphabet and just like names things and the ways they could be dangerous. And, you know, it starts off with like actually fairly like reasonable things with high risks, you know, like alcohol, and I can't remember the rest of it, to be honest. But then it goes on to like, it starts going like a bit off the rails, where it goes like, oh, you know, kale can be bad for you, so don't eat it or something, etc, etc, etc. I don't know, you know, perhaps the Grim Reaper is quite a dapper gentleman, or gentle woman, or gentle entity, I say. I don't know. Depictions of death, no, or the Grim Reaper, I should say, is far and varied, I suppose. This is what we're going to talk about with Grim Reaper. I think it seems like a bit of a dark thing to talk about in Animal Crossing, so perhaps we should move on from that. Although technically we have our own Grim Reaper in Phoebe on this island, well, theoretically. In the Fawnhollow lore, which doesn't really exist all that deeply. So yeah, I don't know, there's a short piece on that. Like, I talked about poetry before, you know, I talked about it a lot because for some reason I just remember an unreasonable amount of like poetry that we learned in English literature back in when I was 15, 16? Yeah, sounds about right. Because for some reason, not for some reason, like the module we covered was conflict and war and wartime poetry and that sort of thing, which is, you know, a rather common thing, at least in the UK. But I think there's normally like 4 different sort of topics you cover, and that's the one that we our school did for. Well, I don't really know why they chose it necessarily, but that's what happened. Yeah, and I talked about it before, but I just seem to remember just a ridiculous amount of the poems for really no apparent reason. I suppose that's part of the way that poems tend to be sort of the in-between, you know, literature, text, passages of text, but combine it with like a much more musical rhythm, I suppose, to it. Well, I guess you'd be like, not every poem's like that, but a lot of them are. And those are the things that stick with me. Music, I mean, I suppose there's also the fact that I tend to remember music and lyrics reasonably well. I'm sure that's in part due to it. Or no, not in part due to it, but some contributing factor towards the entire thing. So I know, lyrical reading, like slam poetry and that sort of thing. You remember that as a thing? Not slam poetry, but like or maybe it is called slam poetry, I'm not really sure what it's called. But it's when people have like very dramatic sort of readings over the top of like dramatic music or whatever. But the one I remember, hold on, can I remember what it's about? It's something about, it's like pork chop or something. Hold on. Is it called slam poetry? I don't actually know what slam poetry is. Oh, it's a competitive arts event. Oh, slam poetry is like a poetry slam is like a thing. It's like a track meet. I thought it was like a genre of poetry this entire time. No, hold on. Poem? Pork chop? I think it was. Yeah, To This Day, that's it. By Shane Koizsan. I think probably a lot of people will know this one. It's a spoken word poem. It's a very famous one. 25 million views, my word. And it's about bullying. I don't actually remember it all too well, except for I think the story goes or something that like for some reason his grandma called pork chops karate chops or something like that. I don't recall off the top of my head exactly like that. I remember there was a misunderstanding when where people ended up thinking that the grandma was like, you know, attacking him essentially, rather than, you know, just giving him a pork chop, and then he got the nickname in school, pork chop, and then I suppose he ended up being bullied by that, which, you know, is not, well, it's obviously not a very great situation to be in, but it's something about his delivery in it, which of course I think was really the most engaging. Well, I mean, the message is good, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be like, oh, you know, anti-bullying is a bad message or something. Of course that's a good message of that sort of thing, but I suppose it's the way that it really drew me in when I first listened to it. When did it come out? 2013, my word. So long ago. I didn't even pay attention to what missions we had there, because I, for some reason, was looking at this Wikipedia article. Customization, fossils, fruit, flowers. Okay, that seems doable. Sorry, a little bit of a pause. Yeah, then the story, you know, goes on to talk about him dealing with bullying and things, and honestly, I don't really remember it all too well. You can perhaps give it to Jonas, and hopefully it still holds up. But I remember it was pretty well received and all that sort of thing. Obviously, people, you know, connected to it on a level. If you were certainly a subject of bullying or seen bullying or have it happen to you, or even been with bullying, I suppose, yourself, because I believe that's what it talks about a little bit. And you know, I didn't really know where I was going with this, to be honest. But it's sort of thing where it's like, you know, I think one of his delivery, I suppose, and the way he puts his emotions behind his words really, like, made it resonate, I suppose, even more, and like elevated it up to a whole new level. And just having the words written down. Anyway, the whole point was that we spoken word poems. I don't know. I feel like I listened to a lot of them at that point, you know, when To This Day became extraordinarily popular, you know, hit levels of virality. Ended up looking at a load of others, but for some reason, I don't really remember a lot of them. I wonder if there's other famous spoken word poems, which I can't really recall. I feel like spoken word poem is not exactly the sort of name you should give to it. It kind of like doesn't have like the whole music and dramatization. It's more like, yeah, a dramatic reading, I suppose. Well, okay, I guess that's kind of into do with reading, not necessarily the poem, now I think about it. I'm not really a poetry expert, so perhaps this is not really my place to comment. And by perhaps, I mean it's not, but yeah, I kind of forgot that was a thing to this day. I wonder if it's still recommended to people like randomly years later. You know, this is where you go to this day and you can click on read one comments and be like, who else is here in 2022 or something? It's like, wow, this still sends shivers down my spine or something to hear it. Don't play, I don't want to get copyrighted. 2 years ago, 1 year ago, apparently no one's here. Only people a year or two ago. Apparently the algorithm didn't sweep it up again. I don't know. I like to have that sort of like dramatic ability, I suppose, to tell a story so much so that it inspires people. Well, not inspires people, but like it invokes the emotional reaction that you suppose you want to have. And at which point you probably just be like, isn't that just like kind of what acting is? And I'm like, yeah, I guess you got me. Or like an orator. Yeah, I guess kind of got me there, and you'd be like, oh, I guess you could do that if you just like took lessons from about something. Now you see, I don't actually want to have to like work for it. I just want to have the ability and bust it out for no apparent reason. You know, that should be a thing. You can just be like, oh, you know, hey, can I just like borrow your ability to be able to, you know, dramatically tell spoken poetry for 1 day or something. Imagine that's a thing you do. That sounds like some sort of like writing prompt or whatever, where you can like lend out abilities or skills you have for like certain amount of times, for a certain amount of time, or that sort of thing. I mean, you can have a job where your entire purpose is just learning skills to a basic level for people to learn or whatever. And then you rent it out for people, or you sell it to people forever. Whoa, that's just like, wait, hold on, that's just teaching, but like weird. Oh well, I don't really know where I was going with this. This entire video is a mess. It's also probably going to be a bit of a shorter video today, to be honest. Mainly because my throat feels a bit weird. I'm not exactly why. I don't think I'm ill, you know. Sometimes you just get those days, you know. And if you speak every single day for 365 days, eventually you'll hit some days where you're just like, ugh. Not today. Let us, I guess we'll get the fossils evaluated, since we need to get that done. Obviously there was kicks, so we don't really need to do much in the way of that. Do you think he's done other sort of like... I can't believe poetry slam is a thing. Not like... Sorry, not is a thing. It's an event. It's not a type of poetry. I don't know why this entire time. I guess I never really looked up what slam poetry or poetry slam even was. I just can't believe this entire time I literally thought it was a type of... like a subgenre of sort of poetries with like certain characteristics. He's most famous for anti-bullying poem To This Day. Hello, Aaron. What are you cooking? I'm calling you friend. I drew that for you. Oh, you know what? We could have just looked at his YouTube channel. Oh, that makes way more sense. The best upcoming animation movies 2022. I don't know why this is here, but there's definitely Puss in Boots 2, I think. To This Day. There we go. Hold on. Tomorrow. Yeah. He's got a lot of poems. Troll. 7 years ago. Shoulders. I don't even know what he looks like, to be honest. And there you go, there's some pictures of him. From 8 years ago. Wait, he hasn't uploaded for ages. 3 months ago, actually. Never mind. 4 years ago. You know, he's probably a busy person. That's crazy, you know. I wonder if it coincided with anti-bullying week. I don't know if that's a thing in other countries. Maybe that's just a movement in the UK. It's a thing I remember about and, you know, hearing about in school. And, you know, I've never heard about it since. I guess because I'm not in school anymore now I think about it. That probably makes a lot of sense. I don't know, it's not exactly like bullying stops in school. I suppose anything can really be classified as bullying, you know, workplace, societies, etc, etc. Anyway, this is a bit of, not exactly the topic I was intending to go down. So I suppose we'll talk more about spoken poetry and that sort of thing. I'm trying to think when the last time I actually wrote a poem was. Oh, you know what? I forgot about this. I actually wrote a poem like when I graduated from university, like but I can't. I'm trying to think like what the non-specific term is, like not like janitor, but like a housekeeper, I suppose. For a place I was staying in. You know, I wrote a little poem in like a farewell card. It was quite nice. Well, I think it was nice. Maybe it wasn't nice. I don't know, she liked it. I think that's the last time I wrote a poem. It's not, I mean, it's not exactly a particularly common thing to do. I mean, it's not like, I can't imagine there are many poets involved. It's much more of like a hobbyist thing, I suppose, rather than, well, I don't know, there probably are, you know, or not probably are, there are people who are actual poets and make a living off of it. I wonder how that works exactly, I suppose. I guess you publish books on anthologies. Or that sort of thing. I guess that makes sense. I wonder if poets make better lyricists than who? I don't know. I was gonna say the average person, but then that's like just kind of obviously the case, isn't it? You kind of need like a baseline than like a normal lyricist. And well, that's obviously also the case as well, because like that's just like extra skills or whatever. Of course, a lyricist who was also a poet would be better than or would probably be better than a lyricist who was not a poet. And that was like a name for that type of effect, right? I can't remember what it is, but the question goes like, how many people are like artists who work in the finance industry, and then how many people do you think are artists who studied maths at uni who also work in the finance industry? By definition, you're meant to give a high percentage on the first one just because it includes more people, but for some reason, because of the extra information about they also took maths and then also work in the finance industry or whatever, there's like some sort of cognitive bias where people go like, oh, that makes it more likely so that more people would be inclined to work in the finance industry or something like that. I'm not sure if I'm explaining this very well. I'm not explaining anything very well. My thoughts are very scattered right now, apparently. You get one of those scattered thoughts days. I know, we're going to do the daily exercises. I don't know. I don't know. Sorry, another little pause. But I did find the fallacy, conjunction fallacy. But this is it. It's often known as the Linda problem, apparently. Well, Linda is a 31-year-old, single, outspoken and very bright. She majored in philosophy. As a student, she was deeply concerned over issues of discrimination and social justice, and also participated in anti-nuclear demonstrations. Which is more probable? Linda is a bank teller, or Linda is a bank teller and active in the feminist movement? And a lot of people, a majority of those chose option 2, which, you know, have a probability of 2 events occurring together in conjunction is always less than or equal to a probability of either one of them occurring alone, which makes sense, you know. The probability that she's a bank teller compared to the probability she's a bank teller and literally any other thing is always going to be smaller. Oh, smaller or never greater than. Smaller or equal to, I suppose, is perhaps the, you know, if you want to use actual definitions. But it's just like that little bit of added information that I suppose that like locks into your brain, being like, oh, this is now relevant. This pattern, there's a pattern here, so this one must be most probable. You know, we as human beings, we're not very good at estimating probabilities, or we don't have a good intuitive sense of probabilities. I think I probably mentioned this multiple times before, but we're very bad at estimating like RNG, etc, etc. There's a thing like in the XCOM games where the game in easier difficulties they lie to you about the probabilities because your brain is so bad at estimating them. So for example, it will just be like, oh, this has a 60% chance of succeeding, but behind the scenes it's actually like 90% chance or something. Because your brain goes 60% chance, that's more than 50% chance, that means it's got to happen. And when it doesn't happen, you're like, what? Well, I'm not going to say you are, necessarily, but people are like. And then the hardest difficulty in the game, which is quite often to be touted as like unfair or whatever, actually follows the displayed probabilities. Isn't that funny? The brain is like that. The brain just like sees things. It sees things like 90% probability being like equal to 100% probability, even though that's not how it works. 90% probability is 90%. You still have a 10% chance to fail, you know? And then when you fail, you just go like, what? This game's broken. Well, okay, but you didn't say that. It's immediately out loud, but like instinctively in your brain, you just go like, what? That shouldn't have happened. But you were just in that 10%, you know, universe. What can you say? I should round this episode off here. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I have no idea what I'm going to title this episode. Spoken poetry? No, come on. Okay, come on. We can do more of spoken poetry. Poetry slams, that sort of thing. I don't think I've ever been to a poetry slam, nor ever seen a poetry slam, nor ever been invited to a poetry slam. Poetry obviously not a very big thing, I suppose, in either school, in my schools, or during my education life or whatever. I'm just shocked about poetry slams. Why is it even called slam? Oh, I've sure been in a lot of stretching sessions. Oh yeah, we've got reactions now. I could probably use these moves whenever I want. Yeah, I learned some stretching reactions. Cool. So there we go, we finally have attended enough of these yoga sessions. Sorry, daily exercise sessions. To actually get these new reactions. We'll give them a bit of a whirl. Stretch to refresh 50. Lovely. Stoic health nap. We should probably work on getting more of those achievements done, but that's neither here nor there. So let's see what these new stretching ones are like. Posture warm-up. Unsurprisingly, these are just all actions that you do during yoga. Not yoga, the daily exercises. Side bends. Look at it. It doesn't seem like anyone reacts when you do these. I would have thought they might start doing it with you. No, he looks a little bit happy, I think. Throw your arms to the side. Wide arm stretch. Wide arm strong. Bada bing, bada boom. Upper body circles. I feel like these are rather niche. Like, when would you use these? I don't know. Maybe the jumping one. Anyway, I'm going to round off this episode here because I don't know what I'm even talking about anymore. So, if you haven't been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons, and I've been Dear Darling. Any likes, comments, subscription, shares are greatly appreciated. Join my Dear Darling Discord, follow me on Twitter down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.